Chapter 1. The Quiet House on the Hill. The Caldwell residence stood at the top of Pine Hill Road in Seattle, a beautiful two-story home with clean white pillars and large windows that let the sun pour in every morning. The yard was perfectly trimmed, the mailbox gleamed silver, and the wind chime by the porch played a gentle tune each time the wind swept through. From the outside, everything looked picture perfect. But for Emma, the house had always felt too quiet, too perfect, almost as if it had been built to hold its breath. 17-year-old Emma Caldwell stood by the kitchen window, watching the leaves fall lazily from the tall maple tree. She held a steaming mug of tea, her fingers wrapped tightly around the ceramic, as if absorbing some kind of warmth. In the background, the faint hum of the dishwasher was the only sound in the room. Olivia Caldwell, her adoptive mother, sat silently at the dining table, flipping through pages of a thick academic journal. No words were exchanged. Emma had lived in this house for 10 years, ever since a massive earthquake devastated Oakland and buried her small world under layers of rubble and silence. She barely remembered the rescue, just a blur of dust, a flashlight in the dark, and a pair of arms that lifted her out. The Caldwells had been her second chance at life. David, her adoptive father, was kind, warm, always trying to bring some color into the household. But Olivia, Dr. Olivia Caldwell, was a fortress with no gates. "Your tea's getting cold," Olivia said suddenly without looking up. Emma blinked, surprised by the sound of her voice. "Oh, right. Thanks," she replied, bringing the mug to her lips. The tea had already cooled. Across the table, Olivia highlighted a sentence in her journal and flipped the page. She didn't ask how Emma's school day went. She never did. And though Emma had learned not to expect the small gestures, no hugs, no bedtime stories, no warm goodnights, her heart still ached for them. Dinner that evening was salmon, steamed rice, and asparagus. David talked about a new bridge project his firm had just secured. Emma responded politely, nodding, offering the occasional smile. Olivia remained mostly silent, only speaking when necessary. She passed the salt. She cleared the plates. She excused herself early. After the dishes were done, Emma retreated to her room. It was spacious, clean, and full of books, most of them untouched. She opened the small drawer next to her bed and pulled out an old photograph. It was the only thing found with her after the earthquake, a blurry image of a woman smiling and holding a child. Emma never knew their names. She stared at the photo for a moment before slipping it back into the drawer. Later that night, Emma stood outside Olivia's study door. The light seeped through the crack at the bottom. A soft glow in the dark hallway. She thought about knocking. She thought about asking her if she wanted some tea. Or just to talk. But her hand hovered in midair, uncertain. And then she heard it, the quiet sound of a sob. Emma froze. She wasn't supposed to hear that. Dr. Olivia Caldwell didn't cry. She was all logic, all control, all polished professionalism. Emma stepped back, heart pounding. She didn't knock. She returned to her room and sat in the silence. Somewhere inside the house, someone was breaking. And Emma didn't yet know that piece by piece, that silence would become the bridge that led them to each other. Chapter 2. A Room Locked in Time. The next morning, the air was thick with Seattle mist, soft and gray, brushing gently against the windows like a whisper. Emma woke early, before either of her adoptive parents had stirred. She wandered quietly downstairs, barefoot on the hardwood floor, her fingers grazing the banister as she descended. There was something about the night before that clung to her like static electricity, the fragile sound of her mother crying. She didn't know what to make of it. After a quiet breakfast alone, a slice of toast and cold orange juice, Emma moved through the house, as if tracing invisible memories. She entered the study. The living room, Even the laundry room, noticing little things, a faint scratch on the coffee table, a chipped mug left on the sideboard, a photograph slightly tilted in the hallway. Then she saw it. At the very end of the second-floor corridor, next to the linen closet, was a door she had always passed without a second thought. It looked like any other door in the house, white, clean, and undisturbed, but it had always been locked. She tried the knob. Still locked. It wasn't until she turned to walk away that she saw the key. It was hanging on a thin hook inside the linen closet, half hidden behind a stack of folded towels. Her heart beat faster. She looked down the hallway. No one was there. Against her better judgment, she took the key and unlocked the door. The room was still. Dust particles danced in the filtered sunlight through the curtains. Everything inside was coated in time. A small bed with pink linens. A dollhouse. A bookshelf filled with picture books. Stuffed animals lined up like frozen sentinels. There was a faint smell of lavender and age. Emma stepped inside, feeling as though she had crossed into a memory not her own. She picked up a small photo frame from the nightstand. A girl, maybe 5 or 6, smiling with missing front teeth, sat on a picnic blanket between Olivia and David. Olivia's hair was shorter, and she looked different, not just younger, but softer. Happier. The girl's name was written on the back, Lily Caldwell. Emma stood frozen, the name like a gust of wind through her ribs. Lily. The daughter they lost. The daughter who once lived in this room. The daughter Emma had, in some unspoken way, replaced. She didn't hear Olivia's footsteps until it was too late. What are you doing? Olivia's voice was low and sharp like a blade. Emma spun around, guilt flushing her cheeks. I'm sorry. You had no right to come in here. I didn't mean to snoop. I swear, Emma stammered, placing the photo back. The door was always locked, and I guess I got curious. Olivia's face was unreadable. Her eyes, usually cold and distant, now glistened with something that was neither anger nor sadness, but a volatile mix of both. She stepped forward, took the frame, and held it close to her chest. I asked David to keep this door locked for a reason, she said, quieter this time. Emma lowered her eyes. I'm sorry, she repeated. There was a long silence. Then Olivia said, barely above a whisper, please leave. Emma obeyed. As she closed the door behind her, she heard the faint sound of Olivia locking it again. Downstairs. David had just returned from a morning walk with his coffee in hand. He saw Emma's pale face and concerned eyes. What happened? Emma looked at him for a long moment. Who was Lily? David paused. And in that moment, something in his face cracked, an invisible weight that had been carried too long. She was our daughter, he said. She died the day we found you. Chapter 3. The Ghost Between Us. David's voice was calm, but his eyes trembled with emotion. Lily was 6. She loved painting sunflowers, mostly. Said they looked like they were smiling. Emma sat beside him on the living room couch, the steam rising from his untouched mug of coffee curling into the air like a secret trying to escape. She kept her hands clasped together, eyes focused on a faint scratch on the wooden coffee table, afraid that if she looked up, everything would unravel. I didn't know, she finally whispered. David nodded slowly. You weren't meant to. He took a long breath and continued. When the earthquake hit, Olivia and Lily were visiting her sister in Oakland. I was on a business trip in Portland. I remember the call. Olivia's voice. The panic. She was trapped under debris, bruised, bloodied, but alive. Lily. She had been playing in the yard when the ground gave way. They searched for hours. Emma could feel the room closing in. A chill crept along her spine. And then, David added softly, they found you. Emma finally looked up. Me? You were in the same neighborhood, trapped under what used to be a daycare center. No ID, no family. Just a photograph clutched in your hand. Olivia saw you at the hospital. You had bruises, a broken arm. You were shaking. He paused, his gaze distant. She didn't say anything at first. But I knew. Something in her changed. That night, she stayed by your bedside, barely blinking. And when no one came to claim you, I realized. She needed to save someone. Anyone. Emma's throat tightened. She remembered that hospital room, blurry figures, the antiseptic smell, the quiet woman who sat in the corner, watching her like a ghost. She thought the woman was a nurse. She never imagined it was someone who had just buried a child. I'm not Lily, Emma said, almost defensively. David's voice didn't waver. We know. We never wanted you to be. But Olivia, she never healed. And the day she brought you home, I think a part of her hoped she might love again. But grief doesn't always leave room. Emma didn't know what to say. A strange guilt began to pool in her chest. She had grown up wondering why Olivia never hugged her, never tucked her in, never smiled the way other mothers did. Now she understood it wasn't indifference. It was fear. Fear of loving again. Fear of losing again. She avoids me, Emma whispered. Like I'm too fragile or too wrong. David sighed. She thinks if she opens her heart to you and something happens, she couldn't survive it again. Silence settled between them. The hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen sounded impossibly loud. Emma stood, wrapping her arms around herself. I didn't mean to replace her daughter. I just wanted a mother. David's eyes softened. You deserve that. You both do. She turned to leave, but then hesitated. Does she ever talk about Lily? Not since the funeral, he replied. That room you entered? She hasn't stepped inside in 10 years. Emma nodded, then slowly walked up the stairs. That night, she didn't sleep. Instead, she wrote. She opened her old journal and on a blank page, she scribbled. Dear Olivia, I want to understand. I want to know Lily. Not to replace her, but maybe to know you. Then she tore the page, folded it, and slid it gently under Olivia's door. Some ghosts don't need to be exorcised. They just need to be acknowledged. Chapter 4. The letter she didn't expect. The morning came with a soft drizzle tapping against the windows like hesitant fingertips. Emma lay awake long before her alarm rang. Her eyes fixated on the ceiling, heart pulsing in sync with the memory of the letter she had slipped under Olivia's door the night before. She had no idea if it had been read. Or worse, discarded without a glance. Downstairs, the house stirred to life as usual. The smell of toasted bread and fresh coffee filled the air. And Emma found herself lingering by her door, listening. No sounds from the master bedroom. No footsteps in the hallway. Only the ticking of the hallway clock that had always seemed too loud in moments like this. When Emma finally walked into the kitchen, David was reading the newspaper with his usual morning calm. He looked up and gave her a gentle smile. She's out in the garden, he said, folding the paper. Took her tea out there. That's new. Emma blinked. The garden? David nodded. It used to be Lily's favorite spot. Olivia stopped going out there after. He didn't finish the sentence. With cautious steps, Emma crossed the house and pushed open the back door. There, beneath a wide umbrella of mist and green, Olivia sat on the wooden bench near the rose bushes. She wore a long beige cardigan, her fingers wrapped tightly around a mug. Her eyes were distant, fixed on nothing, yet alert like a woman standing at the edge of a memory she hadn't dared revisit. Emma hesitated, but before she could turn back, Olivia spoke. I read your letter. Emma froze. Olivia didn't look at her, but her voice was steady. It was unexpected. I didn't mean to upset you, Emma said, stepping closer, her voice soft. I just wanted you to know I'm not here to replace anyone, least of all your daughter. Olivia set her mug down on the bench beside her and turned her head slightly. You remind me of her sometimes, but not in the way people might think. It's not your face, or your voice. It's your silence. Lily had a way of being still, like she understood too much for a child. Emma didn't know whether to feel flattered or crushed. She was braver than me, Olivia continued. When the quake hit, I screamed. I panicked. But Lily, she was calm, told me to breathe, told me everything would be okay. And then, her voice cracked, then she disappeared. A long silence followed. The drizzle picked up, speckling the stone path with tiny dots. I used to think loving someone meant protecting them from pain, Olivia said, eyes fixed on the roses. But I couldn't protect Lily. And after that, I couldn't let myself love again. Not fully. Emma's eyes welled up. But you saved me. You took me in. I took you in, yes. But I didn't open my heart. I fed you. I clothed you. I sent you to school. But I never gave you what mattered most. Emma sat beside her, heart thudding. You were grieving, she said gently. I still am. They sat in silence. The rain dripped from the edge of the umbrella in soft, rhythmic taps. Emma reached out slowly, resting her hand atop Olivia's. It was the first time she had touched her so intentionally. Olivia flinched slightly, then stayed still. I don't want to be a ghost in your house anymore, Emma whispered. I want to be your daughter. Not Lily. Just Emma. For the first time in a decade, Olivia looked directly at her. Not through her. Not past her. At her. And in that look, something unspoken passed between them. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a beginning. I'd like that too, Olivia said, her voice nearly breaking. The clouds began to part. The drizzle slowed. And somewhere in that quiet garden, between grief and grace, a mother and daughter began to meet, not in the shadow of loss, but in the light of understanding. Chapter 5, A Room Revisited. That afternoon, something shifted. It wasn't dramatic. There were no grand gestures, no sudden declarations. But the air inside the Caldwell home felt less heavy, as if someone had opened a window that had been sealed for years. Emma wandered through the hallway, her fingers grazing the smooth paint of the wall until they landed, once again, at the locked door, the one she had entered days before without permission. She didn't try to open it this time. She just stood there, heart steady, gaze soft. Behind her, Olivia's footsteps echoed. I think it's time, Olivia said. Emma turned. Time? Olivia held the small silver key in her hand. To open it together. The door creaked open slowly, revealing the same pink room, still blanketed in dust and quiet, but this time, it didn't feel forbidden. It felt sacred. Olivia stepped inside first, her eyes taking in every object like she was seeing them through the eyes of time. Her hand brushed against the old bookshelf, lingered on the faded growth chart stuck on the wall. Emma followed silently, unsure if she should speak, unsure if words even belonged in this space. I haven't stepped in here since we brought you home, Olivia murmured. It hurt too much. Every toy, every crayon mark, every wrinkle in the sheets reminded me of her. Emma walked over to the desk and gently picked up a small paper sunflower, crumpled, slightly torn. She made this. Olivia smiled sadly. Her last art project. She said it was for me. So I'd never forget to smile. Emma's throat tightened. She was so full of joy, Olivia said, even when the world trembled around her. Emma hesitated. Do you think, maybe? She would have liked me. Olivia looked at her, really looked, and something deep inside her expression softened. She would have loved you, she said simply. You both carry light. In different ways. They stood in the center of the room for a long moment. Then Olivia walked over to the closet, opened it, and pulled out a soft pink box from the top shelf. Inside were folded letters, childlike drawings, birthday cards, and a tiny ballerina figurine with one arm broken off. She wanted to be a dancer, Olivia said. Just like I wanted to be when I was her age. Funny how children reflect us, even in the smallest ways. Emma smiled. Maybe that's why I love writing. David says it's your gift too. Olivia blinked, surprised. He told you that? Emma nodded. He says I have your stubbornness too. At that, Olivia chuckled, a real, breathy sound that seemed foreign coming from her lips, but beautiful. Healing. Human. The moment passed quietly as they placed the box gently back on the desk. Would it be okay, Emma asked softly, if I helped you keep this room clean? Maybe even turn it into something new? Not to erase her, but to make space for both of us. Olivia's eyes shimmered. She didn't answer right away. Then, she reached out and tucked a strand of Emma's hair behind her ear, a gesture so maternal, so instinctive, it made Emma freeze. I'd like that, Olivia whispered. Very much. As they stepped out of the room together, Olivia left the door slightly open. Not shut, not locked. Just enough light inside to keep the memory alive. And enough room for new memories to grow. Chapter 6. Storms We Don't See. Seattle's skies had a way of mimicking human emotion, moody, gray, unpredictable. That evening, as the clouds thickened and the wind picked up, Emma sat by the window in her bedroom, journal open, pen hovering above the page. Her thoughts felt scattered, heavy yet buoyant, as if she were standing at the edge of something she didn't yet know how to name. Downstairs, the faint sounds of kitchen cabinets opening and closing reached her ears. Olivia was cooking. Not microwaving. Not pouring cereal. Cooking. Emma smiled to herself, quietly stunned. She glanced down at her journal and finally began to write. Today, the door stayed open. I think that matters more than anything else. As the rain began to tap gently against the glass, a soft knock came at her door. Come in, she called. Olivia entered. Wearing an apron that looked hardly used, her hair slightly frizzed from the humidity. In her hands, she held a small white plate with 2 steaming chocolate chip cookies and a glass of milk. I figured this might help you write, Olivia said, almost sheepishly. Emma blinked. You made these. I tried. Olivia smiled, setting the plate on the desk. Lily used to love baking. I used to hate the mess. Maybe I'll learn to like it now. Emma took a bite. It was a little salty, a little burned, but delicious in the way that things made with effort always were. They're really good, Emma said honestly. I overbaked them, Olivia replied, sitting on the edge of the bed, but thank you for lying. They both laughed nervously at first, but then it flowed. Light and free. The moment settled into something comfortable. Emma, surprised by her own courage, turned to Olivia. Do you remember the day you brought me home? Olivia grew quiet. Yes, I remember it vividly. I don't. Not really. Just pieces. Like flashes of light in the dark. Olivia looked down at her hands. You were so small. Quiet. You didn't cry. Not once. That scared me. Emma raised her eyebrows. Why? Because I thought maybe you were already gone in some way. Like Lily. Olivia's voice wavered. But then, you took my hand while I was sitting beside your hospital bed. You didn't say anything. You just held it. I think that's when I knew you were asking for love, even if you couldn't say it. Emma's eyes welled up. I never stopped asking. Olivia reached out, hesitating only briefly, and took her hand again, this time intentionally, with no ghosts between them. I'm listening now, she said. I promise. The rain picked up, drumming steadily on the roof, a rhythm as old as grief itself. Emma whispered, Do you think we'll ever stop missing her? No, Olivia replied, her voice firm. And we shouldn't. But that doesn't mean we can't make space for joy, too. Emma squeezed her mother's hand. Maybe we could bake more often. We'd need better recipes. Maybe David can be the taste tester. They both laughed again. For the first time since she was brought into this family, Emma felt something warm settle deep inside her, a peace not born of forgetting the pain, but of learning to live beside it. Outside, the storm rolled on. But inside the Caldwell home, Light glowed through the windows, soft and steady. Two women, mother and daughter, not erasing the past, but rewriting what it meant to be family. Chapter 7. Unspoken Words. Unlocked Hearts. The following Sunday morning was unusually bright for Seattle. The sun filtered in through the kitchen windows, warming the polished countertops and catching on the floating dust motes like golden confetti. Emma stood barefoot in front of the sink, sleeves rolled up, gently rinsing blueberries for breakfast. Olivia was next to her, her hands occupied with whisking pancake batter. Neither of them spoke much, but the silence was comfortable, like a soft rug underfoot instead of a cold floor. There had been a time when this kitchen was a silent corridor between rooms. But today, it felt like the center of something. "I've been thinking," Olivia said suddenly, not looking up from the bowl. "About the room." Emma glanced over, wiping her hands on a towel. "Lily's room." "Yes, I'd like to do something with it. Not to erase her, but to let it breathe again." Emma nodded slowly. Heart full. "Like what?" "A reading space," Olivia said. "A small writing desk. Maybe even a corner for your journaling." "I think she'd like that." She believed every room should have a little magic. Emma smiled. "She sounds wonderful." "She was," Olivia replied quietly. "But so are you." It was the first time Olivia had ever said something like that out loud. Emma didn't answer. She didn't need to. The moment itself was enough. Later that day, Emma wandered into the attic to search for storage boxes. While digging through old photo albums and holiday decorations, she found a dusty brown suitcase tucked behind a stack of paint cans. Curious, she unzipped it, and inside were dozens of notebooks. Each one dated, each one labeled in Olivia's precise handwriting. She brought one down. That evening, after dinner, she placed it on the coffee table between them. "I found this," she said gently. Olivia looked at it, then at Emma. A flicker of surprise in her eyes. "You opened it?" "No," Emma said. "I didn't want to invade anything, but I wondered if maybe one day you'd share some of it with me." Olivia ran her fingers along the notebook's spine, her face unreadable. Then she opened the first page and began to read. "December 12th, I heard her laugh today. Emma, a sound I didn't expect. I thought I'd feel guilt. I thought I'd feel anger. But all I felt was a pang of something I haven't dared to name yet." Emma's eyes widened. Olivia flipped a few pages ahead. January 8th, I walked past her room and saw her asleep, a book clutched to her chest. Lily used to do that too. I wonder if it's coincidence or something deeper. Sometimes. I wonder if I'm being given a second chance. And then I run from it. They sat in silence for a long time. "I used to write to cope," Olivia said at last. "With Lily, with you, with the space between. But I never thought I'd let anyone read these." Emma's voice was barely above a whisper. "I'm glad you did." A soft knock came at the door, David, holding a small stack of pizza menus and a sheepish grin. "I figured Sunday deserves a lazy dinner," he said. Olivia stood, and for the first time in a long time, she smiled without effort. "I vote pepperoni," she said, reaching for the menu. As the evening light faded and the house filled with quiet conversation and the scent of melted cheese, Emma leaned back on the couch, watching the people who had become her family, not by blood, not by design, but by the long, patient work of love. The journals were left open on the coffee table. The door to Lily's room remained ajar upstairs. And for the first time in years, nothing felt locked. Chapter 8. The Things We Say Without Speaking. The days that followed weren't perfect. Olivia still had moments when her face slipped back into unreadable silence, when her hands trembled over the stove for no clear reason. Emma still hesitated before knocking on her mother's door. Still carried a fragile sense of unfamiliarity in rooms that had never quite belonged to her. But something had changed, not in grand gestures, but in glances held longer than before. In cups of tea left waiting without being asked. in the way David watched the two of them with quiet pride, as though witnessing a bridge being built, brick by cautious brick. One afternoon, Emma returned home from school and found a small envelope tucked into the side of her bedroom mirror. Her name was written in neat cursive across the front, Emma Rose Caldwell. The full name. Inside was a card, pale blue and understated. The cover read only, "For every step we didn't know we took together." Inside, a single sentence was handwritten. "You're not an echo of what we lost. You are your own music, Mom." Emma sat on her bed for a long time, the card in her lap, her hands shaking just enough to betray the emotion she'd been trying to hold in. No one had ever called her that before. Not in a way that felt real. Not until now. She placed the card into her journal like a pressed flower, something too delicate to leave out in the open, but too precious to hide forever. Downstairs, Olivia was rearranging the living room bookshelves. Not because they needed organizing, but because for once, she wanted things to feel different. Emma walked down and hovered by the bottom step, watching her. "Do you want help?" she asked. Olivia turned. "Only if you're okay sorting through a lot of forgotten paperbacks and embarrassing travel guides from the 90s. Emma grinned. "Deal." They worked side by side. The air filled with the quiet rustle of pages and occasional comments about awful cover designs or ridiculous book titles. At one point, Emma pulled out a dusty, worn book titled, "Raising the Wholehearted Child." She held it up with a smirk. "Was this for Lily or for me?" Olivia chuckled. "Honestly, I bought it when we brought you home. Never opened it. I was too afraid it would tell me I was doing everything wrong." Emma opened the book to the first page and, in silence, handed it to her mother. Inside the cover was a sticky note that read, in Olivia's neat handwriting, "There's no right way, but love might be enough." They stared at it together for a while. "I guess I did open it once," Olivia murmured. Emma leaned her head against her mother's shoulder. "Just briefly. Just enough. I think you've been doing more right than you realize," she whispered. That night, the three of them sat around the dinner table, not just as a family, but as three people learning to live with the invisible weight of what had been lost and found. David told an awful joke that made both women groan and laugh. Olivia refilled Emma's glass before she asked. Emma offered to do the dishes without being prompted. No one said, "I love you." They didn't have to. Because sometimes, the most important things are said in shared spaces. In quiet presence. In being seen. Chapter 9. The sound of her name. Spring came gently to Seattle that year. The rain didn't stop, but the mornings felt lighter. Daffodils bloomed along the edge of the Caldwell's front garden, where weeds used to grow untended. Emma stood at the window one Saturday morning, watching as Olivia crouched among the flowers, her gloved hands moving slowly, methodically. She wasn't pulling weeds, she was planting new bulbs. The sight made Emma ache, not from sadness, but from the realization of how far they'd come. 10 years ago, a tragedy had brought them together. Now life, ordinary, unglamorous, beautiful life, was teaching them how to stay. That afternoon, Emma found herself alone in the pink room again. It had been dusted, partially reorganized, and filled with small signs of renewal. A second chair. A shared bookshelf. One side still held Lily's things untouched. The other now held a few of Emma's journals. A framed photograph of her and Olivia from the garden, and a small potted succulent she named Hope. Emma sat on the floor, holding a photo album Olivia had left out the week before. It was full of Lily, her first ballet recital, her drawings, a crooked smile with chocolate smeared on her cheeks. Emma had never dared to say her name aloud. Not until now. She whispered, "Hi, Lily." It felt strange. Brave. Sacred. "You don't know me," she continued, her voice steady, "but I think I know a little about you. I think you were amazing. I think you left something behind. Not just the room. Not just your toys. but this quiet strength. And I think your mom still talks to you, in her way. I think she always will. The room was still. The light through the curtains wavered like it was listening. I'll never be you, Emma said softly. But I'll try to take care of her. I promise. She didn't realize Olivia was standing at the doorway until she turned around. For a moment, neither said anything. Then Olivia stepped into the room, freely, without hesitation. She knelt beside Emma and reached for the album. She hated shoes, Olivia said with a half-smile, pointing at one photo. Even in the snow. She used to hide them behind the radiator, so I couldn't make her wear them to preschool. Emma laughed through a wet laugh. Sounds like a little rebel. She was, Olivia said, eyes warm with memory. But she had the kindest heart. She once gave away her winter coat because another girl at school didn't have one. They turned pages together. Stories spilled out like water. Lily's stories. And slowly, they stopped being heavy with sorrow. They began to live again, told, remembered, cherished. I always feared, Olivia admitted, that talking about her would make it harder. That it would mean choosing between grief and love. Emma looked up at her. You don't have to choose. No, Olivia whispered. I don't. She reached out, brushing Emma's hair behind her ear. And you, Emma, you're not her. But you're mine, in every way that matters. Emma leaned forward and wrapped her arms around her mother. Not a cautious hug, not a side hug. A real one, full, clinging. Tear-streaked. I love you, Mom, she said into her shoulder. And this time, Olivia didn't flinch. She held her daughter tightly and said the words she had buried for far too long. I love you too. Outside, the wind shifted through the trees. Inside, two names, Lily and Emma, danced together through the air like a melody finally finished. Chapter 10. The day we were found. The 10th anniversary of the earthquake came quietly. There were no sirens. No breaking news. Just a soft segment on the local station about a decade of recovery. Images of toppled buildings, now rebuilt. A candlelight vigil in Oakland. A list of names remembered. Emma sat on the couch, a blanket over her knees, watching in silence. Her hands held a small pendant, just a simple metal locket she had found in a donation box at school years ago. No one had claimed it. She had kept it. Not for the photo inside, it was blank, but for the way it felt heavy and grounding. Like memory in metal. Olivia joined her on the couch, 2 mugs of tea in hand. David was out of town at an architecture conference, but he'd left a note that morning on the kitchen table. Today, we don't relive. We just live. Proud of both of you. Emma smiled as she read it again, then looked over at her mother. Olivia stared at the screen, where a reporter was interviewing a man who had lost both parents in the collapse. His voice cracked as he said, I was found, but I didn't know who I was anymore. Emma whispered, I used to feel like that. Olivia turned to her. I used to think I was just a shadow. Emma continued, of a girl who didn't make it. That I was chosen because I was small enough to fill the hole. Olivia's eyes welled up. Emma, you don't need to explain, Emma said gently. I know now that you weren't trying to replace Lily. You were just trying to survive. So was I. There was a long silence between them. The kind that held meaning instead of distance. Olivia reached into her cardigan pocket and handed Emma a folded piece of paper. I wrote this the night we brought you home. I never gave it to you. I couldn't. Emma unfolded the yellowed paper. The ink slightly smudged with time. Her name is Emma. No one knows where she came from. But she held my hand in that hospital bed and didn't let go. Her eyes are not Lily's. Her voice is different. But she is alive, and she is brave. I don't know if I can love her. But I think she already loves me. I hope that one day, I'll be ready to let her know she is enough exactly as she is. Emma read the note twice, then pressed it against her heart. You don't need to say anything, Olivia said quietly. But I needed you to see it. I'm glad you kept it, Emma said. blinking back tears. Because I think I've always been waiting for this version of you. Olivia laughed through her tears. I've been waiting for her too. That afternoon, they went for a walk. Not to any symbolic place. Just the neighborhood park with the winding path and the old duck pond. Children ran past them, flying kites. Couples walked dogs. Life moved on, not to forget, but to continue. At the edge of the pond, Emma knelt and picked up a smooth, flat stone. She handed it to Olivia. Let's skip one. For Lily. Olivia looked at her, then smiled. And one for you. She tossed the first. It skipped twice, then sank. Emma followed, hers bouncing 3 times before vanishing with a soft plunk. Yours went farther, Olivia teased. Emma grinned. Beginner's luck. They stood side by side, wind brushing their hair, the sun warm against their faces. In the distance, a child laughed. And it didn't hurt to hear it. Because this was the day they were found, not in rubble, not in grief, but in each other. Chapter 11. A place to begin again. It was a Saturday morning like many others, overcast sky, sleepy birdsong, and the comforting clink of dishes downstairs. But for Emma, everything felt different now. Lighter. Like the world had shifted slightly into place. She woke to the scent of cinnamon and butter. The sound of laughter, Olivia's laughter, floated up the stairs like a forgotten song returning to the radio. Emma wrapped herself in her cardigan and padded down barefoot to the kitchen. Olivia stood by the stove, flipping French toast, while David sat at the table reading the newspaper with a grin that could only mean, I told you so. Morning, sweetheart, Olivia said. It stopped Emma in her tracks. Not because the word was foreign, it wasn't. She'd heard it before. From teachers. From friends' parents. Even from strangers in coffee shops. But never from Olivia. Emma smiled. Morning. She sat at the table, her heart beating faster than it should have for such a simple exchange. Olivia slid a plate in front of her, 2 slices, golden brown, with strawberries on the side and a dusting of powdered sugar. David raised his mug. To the best French toast in this zip code. Olivia rolled her eyes. You say that every time. Because it's always true. Emma watched them, their rhythm. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel like an observer. She was part of it. The quiet harmony. The inside jokes. The belonging. After breakfast, Olivia handed Emma a small stack of paint swatches. I thought maybe we could repaint the pink room together, she said. Something neutral, but still warm. Not to erase her, but to invite you in, fully. Emma nodded slowly. I'd like that. They spent the afternoon in hardware stores, flipping through palettes with names like Sea Whisper and Morning Fog. Olivia lingered over a soft lavender gray called Stillness. Emma chose a pale buttercream called First Light. In the end, they bought both. By evening, the room was cleared and taped off, music playing softly in the background. Olivia painted with slow, steady strokes. Emma worked in bursts, flicking specks of color across her cheek and nose. You've got some on your forehead, Olivia pointed out, laughing. So do you, Emma said, flicking more paint her way. A splash landed on Olivia's sleeve. She gasped. You little gremlin. David walked by the doorway and shook his head. I'm staying out of this. By the time they finished the first coat, the room felt entirely new. Not because of the color, but because of the people inside it. Later, as they stood in the doorway admiring their work, Olivia rested a hand lightly on Emma's back. I was afraid, she said softly, that if I loved you too much, I'd lose you too. That maybe I wasn't allowed to love someone again, not like this. Emma turned to her. But you did. Even if you didn't know it yet. Olivia nodded, her voice catching. I know it now. And then, slowly, she pulled Emma into her arms. It wasn't a hesitant hug. It was warm and full and honest. I'm proud of you, Olivia whispered. Emma closed her eyes. You made me brave. They stayed there, in the doorway of a room once frozen in time, now filled with the quiet echoes of new laughter, fresh color, and the delicate promise of a future neither of them had dared to imagine. It wasn't just a renovation. It was a beginning. Chapter 12: Unexpected Guests. It was the following weekend, and the newly painted room still smelled faintly of lavender and lemon cleaner. Emma had moved in a small writing desk, her journals lined up neatly on the shelf. A framed photo of her and Olivia sitting in the garden now placed beside a small vase of fresh daisies. Every detail in the room had changed, but none of it felt like Lily had been erased. It felt like Lily had finally been joined. Olivia stood at the doorway, arms crossed, a gentle smile playing on her lips. "It suits you," she said. Emma nodded. "It feels like mine and hers at the same time." Before Olivia could respond, the doorbell rang. They both turned. "I'll get it," Olivia said, wiping her hands on a towel as she made her way downstairs. Emma followed a few steps behind, curious. They weren't expecting anyone. At the door stood an elderly woman with silver hair pulled back into a neat bun, wearing a navy coat and holding a wrapped gift in both hands. Next to her, a younger woman, perhaps in her 30s, with soft brown eyes and an uncertain smile. "Hi," the younger woman said, her voice gentle. "Are you Olivia Caldwell?" "Yes," Olivia replied, cautious. "Can I help you?" The older woman stepped forward. "I know this must be strange, but I think I might be Emma's grandmother." The world tilted. Emma's breath caught. She stood frozen halfway down the stairs, her hand gripping the railing. The woman reached into her coat and pulled out a photograph. It was wrinkled at the corners, the ink faded, but it was unmistakable. A woman with Emma's eyes and nose, holding a small child. The same photo Emma had clung to in the hospital a decade ago. "I've kept this for years," the older woman continued. We thought Emma had died in the earthquake. My daughter, Samantha, she never made it. But they never found Emma's body. We searched. We posted flyers. We never stopped." Olivia stepped aside instinctively. "Please, come in." They sat in the living room, the weight of the moment pressing down like a thunderstorm before the rain. Emma finally descended the last few steps, legs trembling. The younger woman stood. "I'm your aunt. My name's Rachel. I was just a teenager when you disappeared." Emma nodded slowly, her eyes wide. I didn't know there was anyone." "We didn't either," Rachel said, her voice breaking. "When we saw the news clip last week about the vigil, they mentioned your name. Emma Rose Caldwell. But you were the only unidentified child rescued from that daycare. It was too much of a coincidence." The grandmother reached out, her hands shaking. "You're taller, and you have your mother's chin." Emma didn't know whether to cry or breathe. She looked at Olivia, who was watching her with a look of deep, unspoken strength. "You don't have to do anything right now," Olivia said gently. "This is your moment. No one's rushing you." Emma nodded, overwhelmed. "I don't remember you," she whispered to the women. "But I want to know." The grandmother's eyes shone. "That's all we hoped for." Later that evening, after the guests had left and the photo had been placed beside the card Olivia had written years ago, Emma sat on the edge of her bed in silence. She wasn't sure what she felt. Not joy, not sorrow. Just expansion. Like her heart had stretched to make room for something unexpected. Olivia knocked lightly and entered, holding 2 mugs of cocoa. Emma looked up. "Are you okay?" "I should be asking you that," Olivia replied, sitting beside her. "I think I'm scared," Emma admitted. Olivia nodded. "Me too." Emma turned toward her. "Does this change things?" Olivia didn't hesitate. "No. It adds things. But it doesn't take anything away." Emma let that settle, warm and certain. "They brought a memory box," she whispered. "There's a baby bracelet with my name on it. Some photos. A lock of my hair. It's strange. I've never had a history before. Now suddenly I do." Olivia took her hand. You've always had a story, Emma. Now it's just becoming more complete. And for the first time in her life, Emma allowed herself to believe that maybe she didn't have to choose one version of love over another. Maybe, just maybe, there was space for all of it. Chapter 13. 2 names, 1 heart. The memory box sat unopened on Emma's desk for 2 days. Not because she didn't care, but because she cared too much. Each time she reached for it, her hands pulled back, afraid of what it might unlock. Not just old photographs or dusty baby shoes, but the ache of a life she never got to live. A life cut off and buried, like a book torn from the shelf halfway through the story. On the 3rd night, she finally opened it. The box smelled faintly of cedar and lavender, like something once tucked into a closet and only recently pulled out again. Inside were tiny keepsakes, a birth certificate, yellowed with time, a beaded baby bracelet that spelled out Emma in faded plastic letters, a pair of pink mittens, and a photograph of her mother, her birth mother, laughing with a toddler in her arms. Emma stared at it for a long time. The woman looked young, radiant, messy in the best way. Her smile was wide, her eyes soft. Behind her was the outline of a house Emma didn't recognize. A life she didn't remember. She traced the curve of her mother's face with one finger. A knock at the door broke her reverie. "Come in," she said, not turning. Olivia entered, a book in one hand. "I brought this for you. It's nothing big. Just something I read in college. About belonging." Emma smiled weakly. "I could use that." Her eyes drifted to the box, now open and vulnerable. "You looked," Olivia said, gently sitting beside her. "That's brave." Emma's voice came out like a whisper. "I'm scared that if I get too close to this, I'll lose you." Olivia didn't answer right away. She reached for Emma's hand and held it with both of hers, firm but kind. "You're not a girl with one story," she said softly. "You're a girl with many, and they all belong to you." Emma turned to face her. "So what am I now? Emma Caldwell? Emma Thompson?" "Both." Olivia smiled. "You're Emma. That's the only name that matters to me." A silence settled. But it wasn't awkward. It was the kind that made space for feelings still finding their way. "Rachel wants to meet again," Emma said after a moment. "She invited me to lunch." "Just us." Olivia nodded. "I think that's wonderful. But I'd like to come home to you after." Olivia's eyes misted. "Always." Emma leaned into her mother's side, resting her head on her shoulder. "Do you think Lily would have liked her?" "I think Lily would have loved her," Olivia replied. "Because Lily loved deeply, just like you do." Emma closed her eyes. For the first time in her life, she felt fully real. Not like a puzzle piece in the wrong box. Not like a ghost filling someone else's place. But a girl with roots, some planted in sorrow, some in love, but all of them growing toward the light. And maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to be one thing. She could be the daughter of a woman who once held her for 2 years. And also the daughter of the woman who stayed to hold her every year after. 2 names. 1 heart. Her own. Chapter 14. Lunch with the Past. The cafe Rachel chose was quiet. Nestled on a street corner lined with cherry blossom trees just beginning to bloom. There were few people around, just the hum of conversation, the occasional clink of cutlery, and the low murmur of a jazz playlist humming through the speakers. Emma arrived early. She chose a seat by the window, fingers fidgeting with the strap of her bag. Her eyes kept returning to the reflection in the glass, not just to study herself, but to try and understand who she was today. A girl with a second family. A new name. A whole new world quietly knocking on her chest. Rachel arrived 5 minutes later, slightly breathless, a bright scarf around her neck and a shy smile on her lips. "Hey," she said, sliding into the seat across from Emma. "Thanks for agreeing to meet." Emma nodded. "Thanks for reaching out." A waiter came by and took their order, coffee for both, a croissant for Rachel. A slice of lemon cake for Emma. I used to love lemon cake when I was little, Rachel said. You did too. At least, that's what Mom always said. Emma smiled politely, unsure what to say. This wasn't easy for either of them. I don't have any memories from back then, she admitted. Just shadows. Feelings, maybe? Rachel stirred her coffee slowly. That makes sense. You were just 2 when it happened. We searched for you for months, Em. We thought maybe you'd been taken, or... She trailed off. The silence didn't need to be filled. Emma understood. I don't remember being found, Emma said. I just remember the quiet. The hospital. Holding a picture, not knowing why it mattered. Rachel reached into her purse and pulled out a photo. It was the same woman again, Emma's birth mother, Samantha, but this time, she was sitting on the porch with both her daughters. Rachel was perhaps 10, holding the baby, Emma, on her lap. They were laughing, sunshine pouring down over them like a blessing. That was your first birthday, Rachel said. Mom made that dress for you. You kept tugging at the bow. Emma took the photo. Her breath catching. She looks happy. She was. You were everything to her. Rachel's eyes shone with tears. She'd hum to you every night. That song from The Sound of Music, Edelweiss. Do you remember it? Emma blinked. Her throat closed up. I don't know. Maybe. I used to hate that song, Rachel chuckled softly. But after we lost you both, I'd hear it and just sit on the kitchen floor and cry. Emma studied the photo again. Do you think she would have liked the person I've become? Rachel smiled gently. I think she'd be proud. And more than that, I think she'd be relieved. To know you were loved. Emma's hand trembled slightly. I am. They sat in silence for a moment, sipping coffee and letting the weight of memory pass gently between them like the steam rising from their cups. I want to see you again, Rachel said finally. No pressure. No expectations. Just as sisters, if you're okay with that. Emma nodded slowly. I'd like that. Outside, the cherry blossoms danced in the breeze, petals falling like confetti. As they stepped outside together, Rachel paused. Can I hug you? Emma hesitated only a moment, then stepped into her arms. It wasn't the same kind of hug she shared with Olivia. It didn't carry the weight of years or the ache of rebuilding. But it held something else. History, connection, a quiet beginning. As they parted, Rachel said, You don't have to choose, you know. Emma looked at her, puzzled. Between your past and your present. Between families. You don't have to fit yourself into a single story. Emma smiled through the sunlight. I'm starting to believe that. And for the first time, she walked away not with a missing piece, but with a piece returned. Chapter 15. Echoes in the Garden. The garden at the Caldwell house had always been a quiet place, neatly trimmed hedges, symmetrical flower beds, a wrought iron bench beneath a climbing rose bush. It used to feel like a museum, lovely but untouched. Still, controlled. Now it was beginning to feel like a place that lived. Emma knelt beside the new patch of wildflowers she'd planted earlier that week. Small, stubborn things with bright yellow faces that refused to bow to the rain. She wore gloves streaked with earth and a braid that had started unraveling behind her left ear. Behind her, Olivia emerged with a watering can. You missed a spot, she teased, gesturing at a dry corner. Emma smiled. I was saving that for you. They worked in silence for a while, the soft splash of water and the chatter of birds the only sounds between them. The light breeze carried the scent of soil and something faintly sweet, lilac, maybe, or memory. I had lunch with Rachel, Emma said, softly. Olivia didn't react with surprise. I thought you might. She brought a photo of my first birthday. It was surreal. Olivia placed the watering can down gently and knelt beside her. Was it hard? Yes, Emma said, but not in a bad way. More like reading a book you didn't know you were in. Olivia nodded slowly. I'm proud of you. Emma glanced at her. For what? For being open, she said. For allowing both your stories to exist at once. Emma's throat tightened. I don't know how to carry both yet. I'm afraid one will drown out the other. They won't, Olivia said, brushing soil off her gloves. You're not meant to choose. You're meant to grow from both. Emma fell quiet, eyes tracing the new buds just beginning to bloom. She sang to me, she murmured. My birth mom. Rachel said she used to sing Edelweiss every night. Olivia looked out at the roses, her face unreadable. I don't remember it, Emma added. But when Rachel mentioned it, I think my chest did. Music lives in the bones, Olivia whispered. Then, to Emma's astonishment, Olivia began to hum. Softly, haltingly, the first few notes of Edelweiss. The melody trembling but unmistakable. Emma's eyes filled. You know it. I used to sing it to Lily. The name landed gently this time, no longer a wound, but a whisper. I haven't sung anything in years, Olivia continued. After she died, I was afraid that if I sang again, it would echo through an empty space too wide to bear. Emma reached for her mother's hand. Lace their fingers together. It's not empty anymore, she said. They sat in the garden as the sun dipped behind the trees, the light warm and golden. And together, slowly, they began to hum. Two voices, two melodies, not replacing one another, but weaving into something new. Chapter 16, A Letter Meant to be Read. The day was crisp and clear, with sunlight filtering through the lace curtains in Emma's room. She sat at her desk, an unopened envelope resting before her like a silent invitation. The paper was heavy, cream-colored, and tied with a delicate ribbon. The handwriting on the front was elegant, familiar, Olivia's. Emma's fingers trembled as she untied the ribbon and unfolded the letter inside. The scent of lavender wafted up, and for a moment, she closed her eyes, letting the calm settle over her. Dear Emma, there are things I have kept hidden, things I thought would protect you, but only kept us apart. When we first brought you home, I was lost in a sea of grief for Lily. I was afraid of loving you. Afraid that any love I gave would be stolen away by fate again. But you, Emma, with your quiet strength and your patient heart, have taught me what it means to hope again. I write this not to burden you, but to share the truth I've carried in silence, that you are not a replacement, but a new chapter. That in loving you, I have found a way to love the daughter I lost and the daughter I have. Please forgive me for the walls I built around my heart. With all my love, Mom. Tears blurred Emma's vision as she folded the letter carefully and held it close to her chest. The words she had longed to hear, the apology she never dared ask for. The promise of a future filled with openness and love, all wrapped up in a single letter. Downstairs, she found Olivia in the kitchen, tending to a pot of tea. Emma approached quietly, and without a word, she handed the letter across the counter. Olivia looked up, surprise flickering in her eyes, then read the letter herself. When she looked back, her gaze was soft and tender. I meant every word, she said simply. Emma smiled through her tears. Thank you for writing it, for sharing it. They embraced, this time fully, freely, without hesitation. In that moment, the last of the silence between them broke, and beneath the rubble of years past, something new blossomed. A love unshaken. A family reborn. Chapter 17, Together. Forward. The morning sun poured through the windows, casting warm light across the breakfast table. Plates of scrambled eggs, toast, and fresh fruit sat in front of them. But the real nourishment was the laughter and easy conversation filling the room. David poured coffee for Olivia and Emma, smiling as he watched the two women share stories from the previous day's errands. The tension that once weighed heavily in the house had lifted, replaced by a quiet joy. Emma glanced at Olivia and caught her eye. They exchanged a small, knowing smile, a silent agreement that the journey they'd taken was far from over, but they were no longer walking it alone. After breakfast, Olivia reached for Emma's hand. "I think it's time we plan something new," she said. "A trip, perhaps. Somewhere we can make memories that aren't shadowed by the past." Emma's eyes brightened. "I'd like that. Somewhere with sun and open skies." David nodded. "How about a cabin by the lake? A weekend getaway?" The three began to discuss dates and destinations, their voices weaving together like a family rediscovering itself. Later, as Emma packed a small bag, she found the letter Olivia had written and tucked it safely inside her journal. It was a reminder not just of the past they'd faced, but of the love that had carried them through. Standing by the door, Olivia pulled Emma into a tight embrace. "No matter where we go, or what comes next, we'll face it together." Emma looked up into her mother's eyes, filled with warmth and hope. "Together," she whispered. As they stepped outside, the breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers and fresh beginnings. The world stretched wide before them, no longer a place of loss, but a canvas waiting to be painted with their story. Together, they walked forward, hand in hand, heart to heart. Chapter 18. New Horizons. The cabin stood nestled beside a tranquil lake, its wooden frame reflecting golden hues from the late afternoon sun. The air was crisp and scented with pine and fresh earth. Emma inhaled deeply, feeling the tension of years begin to loosen its grip. Olivia unpacked a basket filled with homemade sandwiches and fresh fruit, while David set up a small fire pit near the water's edge. Emma wandered toward the lake, her bare feet sinking slightly into the soft grass. She paused and gazed at her reflection shimmering on the surface. The face looking back at her was the same, yet different, stronger, lighter, ready. Later, as the sun dipped behind the distant hills, the three gathered around the fire. The flickering flames cast dancing shadows on their faces as they shared stories, dreams, and laughter. The lake mirrored the sky, full of stars just beginning to twinkle. Emma felt a gentle hand on her shoulder. It was Olivia. "We're building memories here," Olivia said softly. "For all of us." Emma smiled, warmth spreading through her chest. In that moment, beneath the vast sky and the quiet stars, the past and future intertwined, and the promise of new beginnings blossomed like the wildflowers back home. Chapter 19. Coming Home. The journey back to Seattle was quiet but comfortable. The car hummed softly beneath them as the city's skyline grew closer, familiar yet somehow new. Emma stared out the window, watching the world slip by, streets, trees, buildings, each one a thread in the tapestry of a life she was finally beginning to understand. Arriving home, the Caldwell house greeted them like an old friend, its windows glowing warmly in the evening light. Emma felt a strange mix of nostalgia and hope settle within her chest. Inside, Olivia moved through the rooms with purpose, placing fresh flowers in vases and tidying away remnants of the past. David opened the windows, letting in the crisp spring air. Emma wandered to the pink room, their shared sanctuary. The walls, now painted in gentle buttercream and lavender, seemed to breathe with possibility. She touched the spine of her journals resting on the shelf and smiled. Later that night, as the house grew quiet and stars shimmered outside, Emma sat beside Olivia on the sofa. "I never thought I'd feel at home here," she said softly. Olivia smiled, reaching for her hand. "Home isn't just a place. It's a feeling, and you've made it ours." Emma leaned her head on Olivia's shoulder, feeling the steady heartbeat beneath. Together, they embraced the truth that had taken years to learn. Family is built not only by blood, but by love, healing, and the courage to keep moving forward. Chapter 20. Beneath the Rubble. Love remained. The morning sun streamed softly through the windows of the Caldwell home. Outside, the garden was alive with the gentle hum of bees and the sweet fragrance of blooming roses. Inside, the house pulsed quietly with a warmth that had once seemed impossible. Emma stood at the doorway of Lily's room, now fully transformed into a space of shared memories and new beginnings. The soft buttercream walls embraced the sunlight, and the shelves held treasured keepsakes: Lily's worn ballerina figurine, Emma's journals, photos of both sisters side by side. Olivia joined her, placing a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. "We've come a long way," Olivia whispered. Emma nodded, her eyes glistening with tears and joy. "From broken pieces, we built something whole." They shared a smile, not of perfection, but of healing. David entered with a tray of coffee and pastries, joining the two women in their quiet moment. "Here's to family," he said, lifting his cup. They raised theirs in unison, a silent vow to carry forward the love born beneath the rubble, through all the storms yet to come. Because sometimes, the most profound healing begins where everything else has fallen apart.